Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 4th of June 2024, and these are the stories that we will be highlighting during the course of the show. We'll begin with our Prime Minister Shehbazsharif's visit to China. Now, he has left for Shenzhen on the first leg of his official visit to our neighborly, brotherly country. Of course, he's being accompanied by a huge delegation that includes our Deputy Prime Minister, our Defense Minister, our Minister for Planning and Development, and our Finance Minister, as well as the Minister for Petroleum and the Minister for Information and Broadcasting. Now, in a video message that he left just before leaving for China, the Prime Minister said CPEC will be taken to a new era with a special focus on the promotion of business to business or B2B links, as well as the execution of mega projects on a government to government basis. He also presented his agenda for talks with this Chinese leadership, which includes the Chinese Premier and the Chinese President and other important leaders that he will be having meetings with, and also our Minister for Planning and Development, Hassan Iqbal, who has said the focus of the second phase of CPEC is promotion of B2B links between Pakistan and China. This, I feel, seems to be the main focus of the agenda for this visit, along with other important issues of bilateral cooperation. This is going to be our first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, today is day 242 of the Israel-Palestine conflict. US President Joe Biden, on the one hand, confirms Israel's readiness to move forward with terms that now have been offered to the Palestinian side as far as the peace agreement or the truce agreement is concerned. He adds that the US, Egypt and Qatar are committed to the full implementation of the entire agreement. But on the other hand, there are also certain apprehensions on the Israeli side. Not the first time, nor will it be the last time. But will this peace deal go through? This is the major question that a lot of people are asking across the world. Also, the deadly bombing of southern and central Gaza continues, with, of course, the Palestinian side also battling it out with the Israeli side. Large swathes of northern Israel have also been engulfed by wildfires that have been ignited by Hezbollah rockets, with firefighters struggling to bring the blazes under control. So this brings into context also the regionalization or the extension of this whole war beyond Palestine as well. But of course, 36,400 plus people have lost their lives, and more than 82,700 people have been injured in these clashes that have begun since the 7th of October, that have now been categorized as genocide, ethnic cleansing, and crimes against humanity. This is going to be our second story. Then we are going to talk about Chinese lunar mission that has now taken off from the moon. A module of a Chinese lunar probe has successfully took off from the far side of the moon today, carrying samples which will be taken back to Earth, as had been stated by the Chinese state media. This is a world first and a leap as far as Beijing's decades-old space program is concerned, which also aims to send a crewed mission to the moon by the year 2030. Finally, we are going to talk about the International Day of Innocent Children Victims of Aggression, which is being observed across the world today. The purpose of this very day is to acknowledge the pain that has been suffered by children across the world who are the victims of physical, mental and emotional abuse, and we are seeing this currently in Palestine as well as in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. This is going to be our last story. Let's begin with our first, and that concerns our Prime Minister Shehbazsharif's visit to China. He is right now, of course, there, and this is a very important visit between the 4th and the 8th of this month. To discuss more about this, we've been joined by Ali Salman, Dr. Ali Salman. He's the Executive Director of Prime, and he's right here with us in the studio. Dr. Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Saab, our Prime Minister has left for Shenzhen. This is the first official leg of his tour. We'll talk about the different other legs that he has talked about. But of course, this is on the special invitation of Excellency Xi Jinping, Chinese President, and the Excellency Li Qiang, who is a Chinese Premier as well. China, as we have seen, we have discussed in the past as well, has remained a steadfast partner for Pakistan, has offered assistance amid different challenges that Pakistan has confronted. How important do you feel is this very visit, because it's not the first visit that our current Prime Minister is undergoing, in the context of the second phase of the China-Pakistan economic corridor that has been the talk of both countries and their mutual discussions, and further development of the Pakistan-China strategic and economic relations?
Right. Thank you, Omar, for the invitation. I think this is a very important visit of the Prime Minister and a very important juncture of Pakistan-China relationship, when, as you rightly mentioned, that we are entering the second phase of CPEC. In the first phase, we had successes in terms of infrastructure development, energy sector, and many other projects. And the premise of the first phase was that it will help in creating opportunities for the private sector to be more productive and also to create linkages with China in terms of trade and industry. And I think this is definitely a good sign that we are not talking more about business to business linkages, because China is called also the factory of the world. China is a leading importer and exporter of the world now. So any linkages which are built with the private sector would imply that that we will not be incurring further debts from the China side, which was a part of the CPEC phase 1, including a lot of FDI with state owned companies, but we will also expect to have some transfer of technology and also the cooperation in terms of private business sector. Now, one of the very important thing which is happening in China is that they are considering a relocation of many of their firms, private sector firms, as they are graduating to the next stage of industrial revolution. And they are looking at opportunities in other countries, in Bangladesh, in Vietnam, and in Pakistan. So in that context, I think it is important that we not only the government, it is not just the job of the government to seek these opportunities. It is equally in the interest of Pakistan's own private sector to be proactively looking for these opportunities with China.
Dr. Saab, we talked about business to business linkages, and when you look at the video message that our Prime Minister left just before leaving, as well as Ehsan Iqbal's message also before leaving, they both are concentrating on business to business linkages. Apparently, there's a huge Pakistani business delegation of 79 companies, which comprises 126 delegates, that is going to hold business to business talks with Chinese companies in Shenzhen, and that is of course the first leg of our Prime Minister's visit. He's also going to attend this business forum in Shenzhen as well, and of course this is to promote partnership between the Pakistani and the Chinese companies. Our Minister for Planning and Development also says Pakistani business delegation will sign investment and export agreements with their Chinese counterparts during this visit. And he said that the government is focusing on its efforts on ensuring high growth rate on a sustainable basis. Now, this phrase I feel is also very important. How do you feel, in your point of view, the context of this visit in the whole arena of business to business interaction transaction that as is going to happen in Shenzhen? It's a huge delegation, when you look at 126 delegates from 79 Pakistani companies, it's not a small amount. And then how do you feel these linkages could further not only promote B2B ties but also strengthen the second phase of China-Pakistan economic corridor?
Well, as I said, I think in the very first stage, we need to identify those priority sectors in which B2B linkages are to be explored. For instance, if you look at one of the priorities in current Pakistan's industrial policy, it is the upgradation of the textile sector. Secondly, we're talking about EV sector. You're also talking about IT. And so we need to identify, I think again the private sector need to identify what are the leading practices in the case of China, how they are taking advantage of the integration with the world, what kind of productivity, what kind of technologies they are using, what are their business models. Because frankly, in the past, we did not have the experience, the Chinese companies coming to Pakistan, creating joint ventures, except maybe a couple of cases. And that's why we haven't learned much in terms of business expansion, and especially when you talk about Pakistan's private sector, one of the main challenges they face is they lack scale, they lack economies of scale, and that's why they are not able to produce at cost effective basis. And even though it is said that Pakistani labor is still cheaper when compared with the region in China, but still I think our cost of energies are quite high, and there are other regulatory obstacles which still impede the business environment in Pakistan. So you see, whenever a Chinese firm would come to operate in Pakistan, they will still interact with an archaic business environment, investment climate in Pakistan. So whatever interaction has to happen in terms of B2B, most of it will happen inside Pakistan. So while I'm sure that
but
Chinese
of course,
are
I'm
interested-
sure there's going to be a first round of these meetings, as evidenced by the number of companies that are present in China.
Yes, that's true. I mean, but of course they will ask questions like, okay, what improvements have been made in terms of business climate? We had faced problems, for instance, in case of Chinese IPP, which are working for about last 10 years in repatriation of the profit, because we had to curtail on our current account deficit. So, this kind of feedback is going to be transmitted back into the Chinese private sector. So, obviously they will ask, okay, what is the experience of current Chinese companies in Pakistan? So, I think while it is a very good sign that a large business delegation is going to China, we need to improve the quality of our own institutions, especially with the businesses, to attract the Chinese investors as joint ventures.
All right, Dr. Ali, also you talked about incentives to facilitate the Chinese companies. Now the Prime Minister is going to visit the Nanshan one window to observe the Chinese one window operation. When we talk of one window operation, we have time and again talked of ease of doing business. How important is it to facilitate companies when they come to Pakistan? The SIFC was created with that very incentive, so as to facilitate all the international companies that come to Pakistan. How can Pakistan learn from this Chinese one window operation, in your point of view, to facilitate businessmen in Pakistan? Can we emulate that model?
So we have, I think, in the two instances in it which we have tried to create one window operation at least. One was, as you rightly mentioned, the SIFC, and second is this called Pakistan Single Window Project under the customs of under the FPR. The experience, especially from the Pakistan Single Window, is promising, and a lot of streamlining has been done across departments to help importers and exporters in the country. The experience of SIFC in terms of the regulatory facilitation is again helpful, but in terms of attracting FDI, I think still a lot needs to happen.
But facilitation, I'm basically talking facilitating.
So that's happening, but there is one key challenge is here.
Okay.
And the challenge is then whenever we talk about SIFC, we build a lot of expectations, and I think that's also the narrative with initially which was created across around CPAC. So we need to be realistic in our expectations. Government needs to be realistic in the expectations. So you see, SIFC is not like a magic wand to solve all problems.
But it's here to facilitate us.
It's here to maybe facilitate. It's here maybe to push some administrative blockages which impede the business environment. But without institutional reform, without changing the rules and the regulations, just one window facilitation or one window
will not be enough.
Will not be enough.
It needs to be supplemented and complemented by other measures as well.
And also, let me add quickly here, because of course we have a federation, federation structure. So a lot of the business policies or business relevant laws are in the provincial domain.
The Prime Minister, Dr. Ali, is also going to be visiting IT companies in Shenzhen. IT sector you've already mentioned a little bit during our interaction a few minutes back, but how lucrative is the incentive of collaboration in the IT sector between Pakistan and China? We know Pakistan has a wonderful workforce as far as our IT industry is concerned.
Well, I'm not sure about how wonderful our workforce is right now. According to our former caretaker IT minister, we do have a lot of potential in terms of the IT exports. The potential is about $10 billion, but the reality is that we are about $3 to $4 billion right now in terms of export.
Okay.
So, of course, IT has been presented as a next engine of growth for Pakistan, as a next major source of exports for Pakistan, which is quite true. But I think the main investment that we need right now is in the quality of human resource, one. While it is true that we are producing about, in terms of just number, we are producing somewhere around 30 to 40,000 IT graduates every year. But when it comes to quality, a lot of questions need to be raised, and that also, something which we need to learn from, let's say, the Chinese side, that how come they are also producing a high-class workforce in IT, because it all boils down to the quality of workforce. And secondly, as I was talking about the regulatory environment, we still need more support from the State Bank of Pakistan. We still need international payment gateways to be operated in Pakistan. It was announced in the caretaker government that it will be done, but we'll have PayPal, for instance, but we don't have it. So there are some of these bottlenecks
that need to be
taken care of. So the talent needs to be improved, and some regulatory bottleneck needs to be removed. Only then we can expect this kind of collaboration between Pakistani side
in the IT sector
and in the Chinese side.
All right. Now, the second leg of the Prime Minister's visit is to also talk about that's going to happen as well. He's going to go to Beijing, where he's going to meet with the Chinese president. He's going to meet with his Chinese counterpart as well, and also with other top government officials, heads of various companies and Chinese investors in Beijing, of course, with the basic aim of attracting investment in Pakistan. The Prime Minister, while presenting his agenda, will talk about different avenues of partnerships, whether it includes agriculture, mines and minerals, on which SIFC has also been talking about. I met with one American company which is also going to invest in that. Information technology, infrastructure development, skill and vocational training of youth, that is what you were more or less adhering to, industries and special economic zones. He also said that discussions are going to be held on commercialization of the Gwadar port, as well as the expansion of Silk Route through sea and road. He also said that he will be attending signing ceremony of MOUs between China and Pakistan in cooperation in different fields. A, how important are these meetings? B, what fields do you expect Pakistan and China to sign MOUs on?
Well, it's a very tough question. I think first of all, in terms of the priority, we talk about the special economic zones, because I think you have mentioned it correctly in the context of the second phase. And the core part of the second phase is indeed the activation of special economic zones. Now we have at least 9 economic zones which have been identified and agreed upon between Pakistan and China, where the expectation from Pakistan's side is what Minister Ehsan Iqbal refers to as 1+4 model, in which the expectation is that the Chinese investors, as well as the technology and knowledge would be at the hand of Pakistani private sector who would create joint ventures within these zones. Some of these zones are focusing on agriculture. For instance, in Dera Ismail Khan, there is potential of fruit processing, and in Lahore, in Faisalabad, textile is more focused. So different zones have different kind of orientations. It means that we need that level of capacity to match with the expectation. Now, when it comes to again the Pakistani side, I think where we need some level of preparation is that what kind of companies are representing from Pakistan side. Now there are very still unexplained bottlenecks. For instance, you talk about Rashagai zone, which in terms of the infrastructure is complete now, but Israel is still waiting for the electricity provision. Now in a country which is sitting on a surplus electricity at the moment we are, it is strange that why a zone which is already developed and potentially it can play an important role in the exports is not being provided with the electricity facility. So you see some of these problems have been highlighted by both Pakistan's private sector as well as Chinese private sector. So when you talk about industrial cooperation, when you talk about special economic zones, these problems needs to be tackled first. There's a lot of potential which Pakistan's offer. There's a lot of let's say in terms of the agriculture, we have I like to mention one success story which is in Sindh, the production of red chilies, which is now being grown in Pakistan and exported to China with the help of Chinese technology. So these are the, I think, good examples of collaboration which we need to highlight and expand.
My last question is going to, I'd like a very, very brief answer to it. In his last leg, he's going to visit the Chinese city of Xi'an, where he's going to meet top leadership, but also will be visiting model farms and green technology companies to observe the latest technology as far as Chinese agricultural development is concerned. Looking at Pakistan and its climate change and how our agriculture has been badly affected by it, we look at the floods that happened in 2022. How important is it to understand and learn from Chinese technology in order to modernize our agriculture sector?
Well, first of all, I think when we talk about green technology, we should welcome the fact that the solar technology has become much cheaper than before. We are importing a lot of solar cells from China. So that is one important input for green agriculture. Secondly is that the agricultural practices needs to be improved. We need to become more sustainable. And also we need to adopt climate-proof technologies for Pakistan's own sustainable future.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Ali Salman, Director Prime, to have joined us and to have given us your perspective as far as Pak-China collaboration and in the context of this visit of our Prime Minister and his entourage is concerned. Let's wish this delegation all the very best, and let's hope all the bottlenecks that you have mentioned will be catered to and overcome, so that this collaboration can go to its next level. Thank you very much, sir, to have joined us. Let's come to our next story, and that concerns Israel, Palestine, and day 242 of this conflict that has been going on since the 7th of October. We've been joined by Dr. Farah Nas. Dr. Farah, thank you very much to have joined us. We'll begin with the latest situation and the casualties. There's a bombing of southern and central Gaza that is continuing. 7 Palestinians have been killed in Deir al-Balah. 4 more Israeli captives have been pronounced dead by the Israeli military. 36,479 Palestinians killed, 82,777 wounded. Israeli military has killed 45 people in the past 24 hours in attacks across the Gaza Strip. Then all the million people who have been forcefully, displaced from Rafah and the Jabalia and the Beit Hanun, who have been declared as disaster areas after the Israeli military operation there, and the list goes on and on and on. The 15,000 plus children who have been pronounced dead by different NGOs and the government and of course the Gaza's health ministry as well. The women who've been killed, all those women who are pregnant, whose pregnancies are in trouble because of the current situation that has engulfed Palestine, and I can go on and on with what is going on. Will these atrocities continue in your point of view? To which end will these atrocities continue? When, in your point of view, could or will Israel stop?
Thank you, Omar, for having me on your show. Well, when you were giving these numbers, I think this can shake anyone on the earth who is having some kind of, humanity left in them. I'm not getting this, that why there is no end to this war coming up, or will there be an end to this conflict at all? This is becoming debatable with each passing day since 7th of October. And the reasons could be multifold. We need to see who is there in this equation. Is it all about Israel or Hamas? Or in this equation, the people of Gaza, who are really at the forefront of it and who are facing the brunt of this conflict, are also part and parcel of the equation. Unfortunately, on the part of Israel, they are not recognizing that in this entire conflict, they are killing innocent civilians whose life is at threat. And they are not even receiving the basic needs, that is the need or requirement of any individual living on earth at this present age, which requires some fundamental rights, but they do not recognize it. One thing is they are considering this situation as a terrorist attack against Israel by Hamas. But is it really a terrorism attack, or is it a conflict that has escalated in this part of the world? This thing is complex, and it is beyond understanding by the Israelis at this point in time. And when I say Israel, I don't mean at all Jews, because all Jews are not supporting this conflict. It's just a bunch of them. So in this entire way, means and process, we have to understand how the world is looking into this the situation from the terrorism framework or from the framework of a conflict. So if it is a terrorism framework, then this war will end only if they eliminate Hamas. Because for them, elimination of the Hamas is just like elimination of terrorism from Gaza. But if we look at this conflict from this issue from a conflict framework, then they have to consider the people of Gaza as a prime most priority, or a group of people whose life is at stake in this entire ball game. But unfortunately, there's a division in the world at the moment. Those who support Israel, they call it terrorism. And those who are standing for human beings and humankind, they call it a conflict situation. So, first of all those negotiation countries, which includes Qatar, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and all those, even including these days the United States as well, they have to come up to what does it mean, like a point where they can talk about that this is a conflict situation, which Netanyahu needs to understand that in this conflict, the life of a Palestinian is at stake. And yes, of course, if they have problem with Hamas, they can go through other ways and means. But this, the way they are going, it is not leading towards an end to the war at all. It will further continue and it will keep going the way it is going now.
All right. Now, in this whole context of the barbarities and the killings and whatnot, and we'll go into further details as far as the atrocities of the Palestinians is concerned. President Joe Biden proposes a three-stage plan, peace plan on Friday. In the beginning, we see a lot of apprehensions from the Israeli side. The Palestinian side accepts it, but the Israeli side has a lot of question marks, and of course, but the U.S. President Joe Biden confirms that Israel is ready to move forward with terms that now have been offered to the Palestinian side. He also adds that the U.S., Egypt and Qatar are committed to the full implementation of the entire agreement. The U.S. has also called on the United Nations Security Council members to back this new proposed resolution. It has tabled to end the fighting in Gaza. The foreign ministers of Egypt, Jordan, Qatar, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the UAE in a joint statement say it's important to deal seriously and positively with this proposal. This three-state ceasefire proposal, which has also drawn a lot of criticism from the Israeli side, which, whether it be the defense minister, Yoav Gallant, whether it be other ministers who also say that, who talk of the end of the government in Israel if this proposal is adhered to. What, in your point of view, then will be the ultimate outcome of these talks? What's your take on that? Do you feel this time this proposal will eventually pass? And if so, what will be the repercussions? Will Israel accept all the legalities that are attached to this proposal?
To be frank and honest, I don't see Israel is going to adhere to this proposal. And this proposal the timing of this proposal from the United States is very important because they are in the phase of entering election and they're already in the election campaigning process. So it is very important for a candidate who is contesting elections to stand for or to take, a position where he shows that, yes, to me, the life of Gaza or the people, Palestinian matters. And I do listen to my people who are standing and demanding the United States leadership to stand for humanity, stand for the lives of those people who are facing the consequences of the violence that is taking place in Gaza at the moment. Coming back to the proposal idea or the main points that have been proposed by the United States, I don't see Israel will adhere to it. Hamas is also aware of it. Well, to me, both parties are, I think, very extreme in the way they are looking into this entire conflict because Hamas says that they need to provide everything to them in written format because Hamas believes that words have always been shared and uttered in the past as well. And this time they want to go with something that is concrete and simply there on a piece of paper. So there's an agreement, a legal kind of document that is provided to us. We will only adhere to that. In return, Israel, I don't see they will agree to such kind of things because they are in part and parcel of this proposal involves that Hamas will release all the detainees, and on the other side, Israel is going to release the Palestinians held there in the Israeli jails. So will it really happen this easily? I don't see it happening this easily, because this is like, like a win-win kind of game for Netanyahu.
Farah, even if this has been acknowledged by the US side, where Matthew Miller says that there are certain people in the Israeli government who would probably not to look too
Yeah.
kindly, quote unquote, on the new US-backed truce deal. Also, the finance minister in Israel pledges to push to replace the country's failed leadership if it accepts it. So there are contradictions as far as the Israeli side is concerned.
Yes, I agree with that. There are contradiction on that part as well, but we have to see as a larger picture that whether Israel, if they abide by or they listen to this contract happening or the proposal bearing fruits, will it be in the larger benefit of Netanyahu at the moment? We could see Netanyahu is losing popularity, and after this, whatever happens, if this war come to an end, I say if, which I don't see is going to come an end. Um, will after that Netanyahu will be able and to take his position as the leader of the country? That's in extreme doubt. So Netanyahu will do everything that is in his best potential and capability to take this war as long as possible. And it will take him back to that position where he claimed in the beginning of the war that I will clean this area and I will eliminate everyone who stands in support of Hamas, and I will make it a part and parcel a peaceful zone. But is this how peace is achieved? Through violence, through killing, through butchery, through elimination of mankind? I don't see that is the right way and attitude, and probably Netanyahu acceptability is going to be questioned within his own even leadership. There is going to be a rift. But now the problem between Israel and the United States, who are strong allies and they support each other in whatever ways and means they could, can also be questioned over here. But we don't know at the moment whether the President Biden, it is just a lip service or he really mean this war to come to an end. Time will prove. It's a bit early, because I don't see this proposal is going to be implemented in any ways, means, or spirits.
All right. Farah, also, we see Hezbollah and Israel also locking horns. We also see there have been wildfires ignited by Hezbollah attacks in Israel and vice versa. Israeli shelling in southern Lebanon, which has damaged residential areas and other, agricultural domains as well. What are going to be the repercussions of this conflict that is engulfing more nations as we speak?
Well, this was quite obvious from the very beginning of this conflict that it will have spillover effects in the region. And if people like who matters in this conflict, they look deeper into the souls of all those communities or a neighborhood to whom there is some kind of elements of humanity left, they will stand in support with the people of Palestine. But Hezbollah getting into this conflict is another player which is going to be added into the equation. But can Israel, afford at this point in time to pick fights with many other stakeholders at this time and junction? I don't see, because there's a lot of international pressure where we could see Ireland and some of the European countries, they are uniting together in accepting Palestine as an independent state. And there's also a lot of hue and cry coming from the youth. We could see how, even today, there was a lady in France who was wearing the Palestinian scarf, and she was not part and parcel of a campaign, because this has become, a normal norm for everyone to wear a bracelet or something that kind of represent their support for Palestine. And she was wearing this scarf just like a normal person, and she was stopped by the cops in France, and she was fined for wearing that. And she asked why I can wear anything. This is my liberty. I'm not wearing anything that is something unacceptable. And they said, no, you are wearing a scarf which is from Palestine. That's why it resembles Palestine. So you are supporting them. So such kind of things are leading towards further polarization of the society in these westernized countries, which is going to have more spillover effects. In case of the spillover effects of the conflict in the Middle Eastern countries, is going to be more stronger in times to come. But I think this is time that Netanyahu and Hamas leadership, they agree to certain terms and conditions through the involvement of the United States of America that they have to agree to end this war. But if honestly, if you ask me, do I see it going towards an end? No, I don't see it, because Israel will go to the very end until everybody is swept out of Gaza.
Farah, let's talk about the plight of the people in Palestine. On the one hand, you tell them to move from Gaza into Rafah, then you enter Rafah, so they are forced to move from Rafah back into Gaza. So 1.7 million Palestinians are crammed into just 1/5 of the Gaza Strip as we speak. More than 1 million people have fled Rafah, according to the aid group Oxfam. They say that this area is just 69 square kilometers. This area has been designated as a humanitarian zone, but there is nothing humanitarian about the situation there, and this is on record being said by Oxfam. The conditions are unbearable, there is no access to clean water, and people are forced to rely on the sea. What could be done? What should be done?
Well, this really gives us goosebumps, because in this day and age where we talk about human rights, fundamental, basic human needs, and all of that, and this kind of scenario is there, where Israel is very upset on its four detainees who passed away, or I'm not sure if Hamas has killed them or what happened in Gaza. They're very upset with that. And I was listening to one of the documentary. It just got published today, and Hamas has also confirmed the death of these four detainees. On the part of Israel, they were saying that one person who died in the detainment camp, they're saying he left behind a pregnant wife and children and family, and he was 50 or something. And then there was another guy who was 80 years old or something, and he left behind a family, and the family is devastated. And, like as any family could be in such kind of situation. I'm not trying to justifying that whatever happened to them is the way it should be. No, it should not happen to anyone, irrespective of you are an Israeli or you're a Palestinian. The way it is happening to the people in Palestine, it is not acceptable by any ways, means, and definitions of human rights. There's another story that came out today about a 16 or 19 years old, pardon me for the age, but he was a teenager. And that teenager, he walked from one part of Gaza to Rafah. And he walked like 32 kilometers by foot to save his life. That guy, that little boy, he lost 15 members of his family, including his mother and his siblings. And he said when he was interviewed by Al Jazeera to share his views, what happened to him and how it came into his life, he shared that when I reached Rafah, and this is where I thought my life is going to be saved, then the bombardment began in Rafah, and then he along with other people, they were moved from that part to another part which was close by to the Rafah bombardment camp. And he says we still look at towards the south, and we could see the fire, all the bullets, the guns, and everything is visible to us, very loud and clear. And he was asked about his father. He said, my father is a tailor and he still work in Tel Aviv, because to Israel he's not a terrorist, but we maybe are. So all these things are leading towards several questions: that who is a terrorist? Who are you fighting with? How you define such kind of terrorist things over there, where you are making their life so miserable that you are not providing them food, you're not providing them all the basic medicines that they deserve to have, you're not providing them all those services which the United Nations through its entities can provide to people who are in a conflict situation. This is what you're doing to people in Gaza. What sort of revenge are you taking from them? On the other side, the Israeli leadership says that we were in peaceful kind of terms with them, and they picked the fight with us. It's not the people of Palestine who picked the fight. It was Hamas, and you need to go and fix your problem with them rather than killing the people over here. They have all the right to access to medicine, to access to water. And now they're also threatening them that we will stop the supply of gas as well, water and gas, if this also is stopped, what will be happening? They will automatically die. So to me, this conflict is beyond the conflict framework. This is something else. This is a sort of revenge that they are taking place against the people of Gaza. They want to kill them either through hunger, either through diseases, or either through bullets. It's all their own luck, whatever they receive on their way.
Let's hope, let's wish that some kind of light is present at the end of the tunnel, that this peace proposal that has been given by Joe Biden somehow gets accepted by both the sides, and at least we see some kind of truce, some kind of peace happening in this region, because this is what the people in Palestine need. Thank you so very much, Dr. Farah, to have joined us, and thank you very much, because of the time difference as well, to continue to discuss with us very important issues that are very close to both our hearts and to the hearts of all the Pakistanis everywhere. Thank you very much, Farah, to have joined us. Let's come to our last two stories very quickly. The first concerns the Chinese lunar probe that has taken off from the moon carrying samples. Now, a module of the Chinese lunar probe successfully took off from the far side of the moon on Tuesday, today, carrying samples that will be taken back to the Earth. This has been confirmed by the Chinese state media. This achievement is a world first and is the latest leap for Beijing's decades-old space program. The space program in China also will attempt to land a crewed mission to the moon by the year 2030, which is in about 6 years' time. The ascender module of the Chang'e 6 probe lifted from the lunar surface, and of course this was confirmed by the Chinese state media, is described it as an unprecedented feat in human lunar exploration history, because the mission has also withstood the test of high temperature on the far side of the moon. We wish this mission all the very best, and I hope this will be the first in many of such missions, and we will see many interesting results of this probe, the Chang'e 6 probe, and what it will bring as samples from the far side of the moon. Finally, today is the International Day of Innocent Children Victims of Aggression 2024. The world sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, can be a very murky place, a dangerous place for innocent children. Terror, sexual abuse, different forms of violence lurking in the corners, looking for their prey. It can be a challenging place for children sometimes. Often children fall prey to these evils of society and live with a lifetime of trauma and horror. Now, every year, the International Day of Innocent Children Victims of Aggression is observed to raise this very awareness about the innocent children who have gone through these terrorizing circumstances in their lives, and what we can do as people, as individuals, to uphold the rights of children and the victims of aggression. It was on the August 19, 1982, the United Nations General Assembly's special session focused on the plight that the Palestinian and the Lebanese children had faced due to Israeli aggression during the Lebanon war. The Assembly had further pledged to protect the rights of the children in Lebanon. The United Nations Assembly announced that very year, on the 4th of June in 1982, International Day of Innocent Children Victims of Aggression will be observed. What a pity that we're so many years down the lane, in 2024, the same aggression is still being seen on the children. 15,000 plus children have lost their lives in this conflict with Israel. I hope this is an eye-opener for all the human rights champions across the world. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with news stories and segments that pertain to us here in Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.